Hey guys, welcome to the Mind Muscle Connection. I'm Joe Klemczewski with Tyler Weeb. And zero introduction. I'm going to dive right in. I just have a couple questions for you, Tyler, if you're okay with that.
Let's do it.
All right. In your neighborhood, if your house, if you had 4 or 5 disabled vehicles on blocks, no tires, rusted out, it's been sitting there for 10 years, your lawn hasn't been mowed for 2 years, do your neighbors have a right to protest that? Do they have a right to be angry and tell you how to, quote, run your household, at least on the exterior?
So I've actually got a pretty interesting, not a story about this, but where I used to grow up. And this is actually kind of a thing that they're known for. So I grew up in this small little town called Linden, Washington, right? Little Dutch farm community. It's about 7,000 people right on the, US border, Canadian border. And everyone, 98% have immaculate lawns. It's like what we're known for in Linden. And there's this joke, and I don't know if it's true or not, but if you let your lawn get up to a certain point and don't take care of it, the city will just come through and cut it and then charge you for it because we have this standard. And we would get you got your high school basketball. I remember we went to a game one night and you get your chants back and forth, right? And they would that was a chant that other schools would have for us somehow, you've got to mow your lawn or, what have you, right? That was something we were known for in the area. So that's kind of funny. That's what you start off with, because having an immaculate lawn and a property that looks good has been drilled into me as a young age.
So you must clearly have an answer then.
Yeah. So I mean, that is the $1 million question is are you allowed to do that? And I don't know what the right answer is. There is no right answer, is there?
Well, let me ask you another question.
Talking off screen about this, how there, sometimes there is no right answer, because in one sense, yes, I think, there has to be some type of community care for each other, right? I think that if you are a completely individualistic person, I am the only one that matters, you are going to miss out on things.
Okay. So we'll come back to that. So at least put a line. So there may be a line where it's yes and no, who knows, but there is some potential. Yeah. So let's go back to the 1960s or early 70s, and you're a healthy guy. You care about your health, and you get on an airplane where 75% of the people pull out a cigarette and start smoking. Do you have a right to not be happy and to contest that?
Well, I mean, the interesting thing is, what did we know about smoking back then what did we not know about smoking back then that we know now? Is there a difference? Doctors were maybe not prescribing, but they were on the front advertisements for smokes, right?
But let's say that you don't like it and you believe, even in 1968, you believe it's bad for you and your baby, you got your daughter sitting there on your lap. Do you have a right to be fuming and say, this is not right? You should not have the right to smoke on an airplane.
I'm still making the choice to get on the airplane knowing that people are going to be smoking on it. I'm still making that free will choice, right?
Okay. So maybe people should still to this day have the right to smoke on an airplane.
And this is where I'm very curious to actually really hear your opinion, because at what point does the overall public health come into play? At what point do we determine that your individualistic freedom to do whatever the hell you want is so detrimental to the population at large that, sorry, we have to take away, I guess, that individualistic freedom for the better of the majority of the human population?
So you just put another line in. There is a line. There's a yes. Both sides have rights, and somebody may have to compromise. One more question. Then I'll be done with this game.
It's if both things can be true.
Do you have any friends right now that don't just have any real adhered to health values. They're overweight. They don't work out. They just don't give a rip about their health. Do you have any personal friends like that?
Yes.
Okay. Do you feel toward them like you have to evangelize them a little bit? Like, man, don't you want to be a little healthier? Don't you want to like take care of your body? Like, look what the example you're giving your child, or are you like, hey man, it's your call. Just do whatever you want.
I would say no, I don't, because I think that there is sometimes a negative perception around people who are fit and have this complex that they are better than unfit people. And I think that is actually a huge turnoff to unfit people. And so that is something that I actually try not to personify when I don't have around here. I don't really have anyone that is, into a super fit lifestyle as a friend. Like most are kind of in that realm. And so I'm a big believer in showing that you can have a fit and healthy lifestyle, but you can still have your fun too. You can still, go out, enjoy yourself, and still kind of incorporate it all together. I think that's a more powerful, to use your word, evangelical message.
Your tax dollars, a large percent of your tax dollars go to pay for their insulin when they get diabetes. They pay for their, other unfit caused healthcare calamities. And you will continue to do that. You will continue as you're staying healthy and staying fit and taking up a markedly lower part of that Canadian healthcare budget subsidized by the government through your tax dollars. The rest of your life, you are going to be paying for those people's healthcare choices. Does that change your opinion on maybe there should be some standards of care?
I mean, if it's not one thing, it's going to be another. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I mean, if I'm not paying for healthcare, I'm going to be paying out the ass for something else. I mean, life costs money, things cost money.
Like you could have nice things, like you could have new roads, you could have you could have good things, but instead the portion of in the United States, 70% of people are now overweight or obese. Yeah. And that type of entitlement spending keeps creeping up. And these are legitimate questions. The reason I start with these three examples, of course, the first two that were non-sequential to the last, just to show that you do have this problem philosophically. We all do. We have since we were a species with tribes of 10 or 15 people all around, Africa and Europe. You have your individual rights. You have some rights that we think are inalienable if you live in some kind of a civilized society. But then you also have the collective rights of the group. So do I have the right to murder somebody because I just want to? I really think that person deserves to die. It's my right. Maybe they took a shit on my lawn, my perfectly, Linville lawn. Do I have that right? Why would you take that right away from me? It's my right to do that. But of course, we as almost every society in the world have decided that, hey, there is a line. All of a sudden your rights aren't quite your rights if they infringe that heavily on the rights of other people. So there is a political axiom that I think people should know. Your rights end where my rights begin. So we both want rights. When those two things collide, we've got a problem, and sometimes a big problem. And you see it, of course, with COVID and the mandates and the restrictions and vaccines and so forth. But to our point today, I love what you said about the self-righteousness of like, look, I don't care. I have friends who don't work out and don't do anything about their health. And, I don't judge anybody for that. I don't, just like you. But at the same time, you would have to admit, like, you're thinking, wow, if all the things that you could be feeling better about, or I mean, physically and all these things that you could eliminate. I mean, I grew up with two parents who had zero health values whatsoever. I mean, they both smoked their entire lives. My dad died of heart disease at 65. And even as a child, I mean, I guarantee the reason I am a health scientist is the fact that I, at a very early age, was getting these PSAs from school and everywhere else about being healthy, be healthy, be healthy. Like that kind of social and public pressure to make better decisions, it worked on me. Yeah. And I think it especially worked because I had the contrast of my own family that was just a living health shit show. And so I could easily see, wow, I don't want to do that. I want to have the life that these people are promising with better health. So I felt that burden. I mean, I barked at my parents their, entire lives to get healthy, quit smoking, lose weight. I mean, it begged them, pleaded them. And yet, at the end of the day, they make their own decisions, never made a bit of difference. So maybe I was wasting my time in anxiety, and maybe I was even damaging our relationship. So I know exactly what you're talking. And that's what I want to spend the rest of our time talking about is, do we just have a completely laissez-faire approach? Just let everybody be who they are, or especially because we have this collectivization of taking care of each other's healthcare finances in every single country to some level, maybe we do have some rights as a group to say, man, we should have some standards of self-care of some level. Tough decision.
Yeah, like a couple points, kind of circling back to, what are your rights and murdering someone? You have that right, but there's going to be consequences, right? Like every decision has a consequence. Like trust me, I'm not saying like it's okay to just go out and murder someone. Like this is just an example, but hell yeah, you could go do that right now. But guess what? You're going to have to suffer that consequence of going to jail. But you still had that choice to make that free will choice. So, I think, at what point do we, with The Office and Dwight, rip all the warning labels off, right? And just, kind of let people figure it out themselves and go, hey, you know what? Yeah, you have the choice. But in reality, you're going to have these consequences that you are going to have to deal with because of your choices. I think that's kind of gotten lost in the shuffle a little bit as well of, well, you have to do this, you have to do that. Well, maybe we don't mandate it, but guess what? I mean, the consequence from what we know from the data is a very high probability of an early death. Okay. I mean, that's someone's very personal choice to make. I'm all for that. I also think
you're spending 40% of your tax dollars for them to make those poor decisions while you make the right decisions, or I should put that in quotes, right decision.
I was going to say, well, what's a wrong decision and what's a right decision,
the healthier decision to take care of yourself. The things that we can empirically say through science will decrease your risk of disease and mortality.
Yeah.
Well, let me tell you this.
Yeah, I'm not disagreeing with you on that one. I do agree. But my second point was going to rotate around to the messaging. And I think that is something that really needs to be focused on because the messaging behind and around all of this has become so partisan and it can be so black and white and binary of this, that, and the messaging of cohesiveness and public health, I think has really gotten lost in the shuffle.
Well, I'm going to tell you that I do have all the answers, and I'm going to give you the solved solution to this whole crisis. But after I give you that answer, I will tell you how you can immediately, chop it down at the knees. So first of all, I do agree that we should have those kinds of rights, as you said, even for somebody who, is maybe making some poor choices, like you have those rights. But you said the word consequences. And this is where people get very angry when you say, well, you have the choice to do that, but you're going to have to pay this ungodly sin tax on high sugar, on alcohol, on tobacco, because those kinds of things in society cost society more money. They, traffic deaths and lawsuits and literal death. And just like there is a cost. And so you engaging in that, you will pay that cost. It's not just a consequence to yourself, as in the personal consequences, but there is a societal cost. Now, the problem with that is when there's just not enough safeguard. So as I said, your rights end where my rights begin. With COVID as an example, without any vaccines, with a novel virus that is sweeping the world. We saw the pictures of in Italy. We saw the pictures from New York City with his corpses piled up. They're literally throwing corpses on ice rinks because there's no space in the morgue. And again, no protection, no vaccines. Everybody's just freaking the fuck out. And yet, even just something as simple as masks, like we think like this is going to protect at least some, and especially the N95s, like it's some protection. It will reduce transmission. It will save millions of lives. Just do it. No, you can't take my freedom away. I'm not going to wear that mask. And so all of a sudden now, your daughter could have died because somebody was, putting their rights above your rights. Now, again, my point is there is a line, as I was putting in our metaphors in the beginning, but the line moves. It moves with every new data point, every new context. And that has to be something that's just nonstop communicated through society. And another word you used was messaging. So I was somebody who's like, look, just like the smoking on an airplane scenario, you don't have the right to murder other people because you're going to go out and spread COVID and so forth. Now we have vaccines. Now we can protect the vulnerable. Now, all of those things are in place. So now my position is zero mandates, zero restrictions. I don't care if you get vaccinated or not. I'm protected. My family's protected. So it's over. Like that should be the answer. We needed those safeguards here. Now we've got a solution and now we can move on. But you don't see a lot of people with that kind of social flexibility. It's either one position or the other, typically driven by their political or media ideology. And then it's just a battle forever.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm right there with you. I fully agree. At the beginning, I was full on, yep, let's, mandates. We know that this works. We have to sacrifice short-term for long-term. Let's do it. Now, like in BC, where I live, 90% of people are vaccinated. And yet we still just got done with another round of restrictions. And guess what? They just opened back up. Nothing changed from when, literally nothing changed. So yeah, it is getting to that point where it's, hey, you know what? You're probably the people who are not vaccinated at this point, and don't mean to turn this into the pure COVID thing, but you're probably not going to convince them. They're probably not going to do it. So why fucking try? I'm pretty sure everyone's done. Let's move on. No more mandates, personal freedom. Let's get back, because it is wreaking havoc on people's mental health, physical health. It is getting to a point where it's tough. I have essentially been in Canada for 2 years. They made it very hard to leave. In the beginning, awesome. Thank you. I'm glad my country did some of that. But now it's going on a little bit too long for my liking.
Exactly. Yeah, and I have friends in Canada who are trying to get work visas to get permanent residency in the US because they're like, dude, this is fascism. We're done. But let's end on that note that you used another word that I'm going to pick out as just the perfect way to encapsulate this topic, which is in the messaging and incentive, because the other side of consequences is incentive by proper messaging and inclusion. And so when you see things like, the moniker healthy to any size and, non-intentional weight loss and intuitive eating and just trying to eliminate shame, I'm for all of that. I'm for everybody feeling zero pressure. But like I said, there is a caveat. Again, you look at consequence and incentive. If I knew that my poor health choices were so bad that I'm just sucking the life out of everybody else through tax dollars and entitlement programs, I would probably feel, bad enough to want to at least keep up a certain level of health. But it is up to us as a culture to incentivize people. And you can do that monetarily. If you're at a societal leadership level, you're in Congressman, Parliament, something like that, you could do things like the taxes and even the tax credits. If you are super healthy, you show up for your annual physical and your blood markers are here and your BMI's here, hey, wow, we're going to reduce your taxes. You're going to get $1,000 tax credit because you're taking care of yourself. You guys over there who your BMI is 40 and your cholesterol is 400, guess what? You're going to get $1,000 increase in your, tax dollars that go to insurance type premiums because you're costing society that burden. I think that alone produces some incentive shift where it doesn't have to be just this moralistic pushing and pulling and arguing. But it takes people to make those decisions.
And how do you get people to make those decisions in a society that has become very, very individualistic and all about just me, right? Like, how, again, do you start to shift that messaging where you talk about public health and the first word that people think of isn't socialism? You know what I mean? Like how do you start to shift that type of messaging where, yeah, you're not infringing on someone's right to be fat or to be, unhealthy if they so choose to be, but still kind of don't punish them for it. Right.
Well,
like, how does that, you know what I mean? Or not, because you're not punishing them, but it might look like you're punishing them, right? Like, where, how does that change?
And let me go one step further. I'm so glad you brought that up, because to even say that based on your quote performance, your cholesterol, that takes genetics completely out of the picture, which could completely tilt it. Imagine that ectomorph who's got perfect genetics and so forth, and all of a sudden you're giving them rewards for something that they did not earn. Somebody else could have horrible obesity in their DNA, the propensity for that, and all these things. I know people who are hypercholesteremic because of just a genetic defect. And so again, now all of a sudden that line that we decide has to be here for right now in this position at this time. Now it's like, oh, now we also have to have these layers of exceptions and so forth. And so this is what gets people really riled up, because all of those can become political talking points where one side is just attacking the other and pulling in their ranks of soldiers to do their fighting for them socially. Yeah. And it's completely unsolvable in mass. And that was really my biggest point. It even asking you those questions in the introduction is to say that, yes, everybody has a right. I'm doing this because I'm showing like grass height levels again. Everybody has certain rights, and we should be willing to forfeit or bend certain rights for the rights of others. And the one thing that you perfectly said is the way we treat each other and incentivizing just by, and when I use the word messaging, I don't want it to sound so like businessy or political, but just the fact that you're leading with some level of compassion. Like, look, of course, you be you, but here are ways to do this. Here are ways, opportunities for people to be healthier and live better and so forth. And that is, if your tax dollars weren't going all toward ill health, they could go toward things that actually allow for better health. Imagine if you weren't spending hundreds of millions of dollars on poor health, and you could all of a sudden build skate parks and places like this in all the cities, and kids have a place to go, and after school programs and things that, again, everything, like you said, costs money, but we can spend money for better things when we're not paying for each other's poor choices, including other aspects of life. Like you said, reckless driving, drinking, it's not just overall health, it's total behavior.
Everything. Yeah, great point. I fully agree with you. Yeah.
All right, man. Well, I lied. We didn't solve it, but at least
we tried.
We showed people that the context is so multifaceted and so large that it's not a problem meant to be solved. It's meant to be managed one society, one crisis or one context at a time. And that's what civil societies do. They communicate, they talk, they govern, they lead, they follow, they bend, and it's all just a big happy mess that moves forward, but hopefully without a lot of strife, or at least the needless strife that we see today.
Yeah, it does seem that we could certainly spend our money in better areas. That's for sure. That could probably be a whole other hour of topics, but yeah, I think just trying to get people to, have a better understanding of that public health, get rid of that shame, just the amount of money that could be saved, the amount of headaches and deaths and things like that. I mean, I always tell people, like, getting into fitness is truly the fountain of youth. Like, we spend all of our time like looking for this special thing, like, to make us look younger, to feel younger, to do all this. And it's like, just take care of yourself a little bit more, go for walks, lift a little bit, eat a little bit better. And guess what? You found it.
I feel like we need a cool sign off. Like, this should be where we say, hey, this is Tyler and Joe, go love one another. Or we could just, like, ours will be like, just, don't be assholes. That'll be our sign off.
Don't be an asshole.
Right.
Yeah.
But everybody, thanks for watching, listening. Tyler, thanks as always. I love these chats, and I hope we're making a difference, just getting people to think about some of these deeper topics in our own health and fitness community. And we will see you guys next time in the Mind Muscle Connection.